Good day everyone, this is Patrick from EasyFX Code Trading System, and this is Wednesday the 4th of March 2020, and this is the weekly midweek analysis for Euro, Cable and the Aussie dollar, and it's just after 6:30 approaching 7 p.m. in Singapore, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the US. And let's take a look at the Euro, which has continued its bullish bias from last week and climb all the way back up to the 112 level, and after pullback yesterday into the 111, it raised up to test the 112.10 at the weekly R2 pivot level, and for today it's just consolidating between the 21 and 38 pip retracement levels. The weekly pivot for this week is at 109.62 and it's well above that now, so there could be further retracement lower, perhaps back down to the 111 area. And so far the economic news for this week, final manufacturing PMI was slightly better than expected, but the CPI was lower. And just a while back, the services PMI was basically neutral to slightly lower. But the big news was the emergency rate cut by the Federal Reserve last night, and that took the market by surprise. But the euro has basically remained neutral. There could be some discussions probably by the ECB ahead of next week's policy decision. So we'll see whether they'll just wait for that or whether they'll also follow suit with a surprise announcement. It's the only exposure left for news is the ISM non-manufacturing for the US and non-farm payroll report coming up on Friday. But otherwise, there's nothing else for the euro side. Let's take a look at the cable. Cable had a significant gap down at the start of the week, but then recovered, closed the gap, and approached the weekly pivot for this week, which is at 128.53. And today is just consolidating around the 128 level, which is now resistance, and the support is at the 138 fib level where it bounced off from. The PMIs for this week was relatively flat and neutral, so not much impact from there. So the BOE is set to have their policy decision and rate decision at the end of the month, and we'll see whether there's any reaction to the Federal Reserve's emergency response. But for now, I think they may still put it on a hold as the virus outbreak is not as severe in the UK. So the weekly pivot is also right at the daily 200 EMA, so right at the 128.53 level, which could be a significant resistance. We'll see whether it's able to break through that later on this week. Let's move on to the Aussie dollar. And after a significant rebound towards the end of last week, last few hours of Friday, the Aussie has recovered somewhat. And yesterday the RBA did indeed cut rates by 25 basis points, and that gave a boost to the Aussie dollar, and attempted to test the 138 fib extension level before pulling back into the 162 fib extension level. And for today, it's just consolidating in a small range, climbing just above the 0.66 level. This week's weekly pivot is at 0.6521, so it's managed to climb above that now. After the 138 fib extension level, there's another significant resistance level above that at the 0.6670 to 75 area. So there is an interim resistance zone down here. At the 138 fib level. So this could be a potential range for the rest of the week, which is rather small. And today's GDP figure was also slightly better than expected. Tomorrow there's trade balance figures, and then followed by retail sales on Friday, as well as being exposed to the non-farm payroll report in the US on Friday. So you'll see how it impacts both the cable and all the major pairs as well. Alright, so meanwhile, do check out my other videos on spot gold and dollar yen, and have a good trading rest of the week, and cheers.